What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. And coming up on today's show, I want to look at 10 free agent targets that Minnesota could look at after the Justin Jefferson extension that went down this morning, as that was the long-awaited news we have all been waiting for. But it actually did clear up some more cap space for the Vikings to spend in this free agency period. So let's take a look at his contract details here real quick. If you guys notice at the top of your screen, his cap hit for this upcoming year is only going to be at $8.5 million, which is $11 million less than what was supposed to be if he would have played on that fifth-year option. But in 2025, sitting around $15 million, 2026 at $39, 27 at $43, and then 2028 actually a cap hit of $48 million. So that's how the deal is shaking out right now. But after the contract news or the contract extension for Jefferson, the Vikings cap space right now is sitting at $27.8 million, which actually ranks 8th in the entire NFL. So, obviously the Vikings do have some money to work with now after that extension did go down. But I think most of their, cap space that they have slated right now could go towards a guy like Christian Darrisaw, who, as we know, an extension could be coming soon from one of the best left tackles in the National Football League. So, I think when he was the Vikings GM, when he was making this deal, I think he had a lot in play. I think he was thinking about Christian Darrisaw, number one. I think he had J.J. McCarthy's rookie contract in mind as well. So, Jefferson's contract seems more backloaded. I could see them giving Darrisaw a front-loaded deal, and don't be shocked if this move does go down this summer. But I do want to give a shout-out to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah before we start off today's show. Before this offseason started, the Vikings could have went in a ton of different directions. They could have brought back Kirk Cousins, paid him the bag, and really tried to run it back with the group that they had last year. But they completely pivoted. They wanted to get younger and more athletic on defense. They did so with letting Danielle Hunter go, bringing in Jonathan Grenard, and they got more weapons offensively. And I actually tweeted out after day one of free agency, this was on March 11th, and I said the next moves the Vikings need to make, I said they needed to sign Aaron Jones. They did so. I said sign Sam Darnold. They did just that. Trade up for a quarterback. We got J.J. McCarthy. And then I said the last move that needed to go down was extending Justin Jefferson. So I just want to give a shout out to Kwesi for that. Maybe he was looking at my Twitter when he was making his decisions this offseason. But before we get into the 10 names that I want to go over the Vikings could bring in, I want to make sure you guys all are subscribed here to the channel. Closing in on 26,000 subs. So first off, shout out to everybody who's hit that sub button so far. But we just need 275 of you guys to subscribe to hit that milestone. So I would really appreciate it if you guys did so. Let's go over the first name here, and that is Xavien Howard, the cornerback for the Miami Dolphins, who does have a very good relationship with Brian Flores, as they did play together when they were back in Miami. But the way the Vikings cornerback group is shaken out right now is, I think you got a bunch of guys that I like but don't love. Like, I like Byron Murphy, but I would prefer him more as a true cornerback 2 with this unit. A guy like Shaq Griffin, I think, is going to be a good rotational piece. Caleb Evans, we'll see what we have there. But as we do know from mini camp OTAs this past week, Mekhi Blackmon was getting more reps in comparison to him. You got Najee Thompson, like the special teams demon, but there is definitely still a need, to have a true cornerback 1. And I'm not saying Xavien Howard is that, and he is that same guy that was that lockdown corner, but he could still be effective. I mean, this past season in 13 games played, still put up really good numbers. He allowed a completion percentage of 62. Quarterback rating was at 87, but he had 12 pass breakups and an INT for Miami last season. And if he could just bring a little bit of that juice to this Minnesota cornerback room, I think he could work out absolutely fantastic. But this guy's been producing in the NFL over the last couple of seasons, and he's been one of the top cornerbacks. I mean, dating back to that 2020 season where he was fantastic, having 10 interceptions, 10 INTs, and 20 pass breakups that year. Xavien Howard, for me, he would be my number one choice as a free agent target I would want to bring in. But another cornerback, Stephon Gilmore, who played his ball last season with the Dallas Cowboys. And, Father Time has yet to tap Stephon Gilmore on the shoulder, as he has still been very, very effective. And, again, he is not the same player he was that won a depoy with the New England Patriots, but he was still very, very effective. I mean, this past season, in 17 games, only allowing a completion percentage of 54.9. Fantastic. Having 13 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, only allowing 653 yards. I think he's been just pretty solid for Dallas last season, and he has been bouncing around the league the past couple of years. He was with New England when he won that depoy, but then he went to Carolina in 2021, played with the Colts in 2022 and was effective there. And then this past season with Dallas, he was still, very, very solid there. So I think he's another guy, and he could also be a veteran for these younger corners and just kind of, mentor them and teach them kind of the ins and outs of the NFL. But another cornerback, and this is Adoree Jackson of the New York Giants. And if I had to pick, I think Xavien Howard also be a great scheme fit with what Flores likes to do on that side of the football. But Adoree Jackson is a Brian Flores type of football player. He wants to be impressed man. He doesn't want safety help over the top, and that's what he's been doing throughout his NFL career. And ESPN, Bill Barnwell wrote up an article going over best fits for each NFL free agent. He put this out a couple weeks ago, and he had Adoree Jackson for his best fit was the Minnesota Vikings. So I think he's a guy, maybe he won't be a breaking the bank type of contract that I think Gilmore and Howard, because I think those guys could get around 7, 8, 9, 10 million. I think you could probably get Adoree Jackson on a way cheaper deal, and I think it could be very, very effective as well. But let's kick at the running back here. All right, let's talk about Cam Akers, the first running back on this list, as he was with the Minnesota Vikings last season when they did trade for him from the Los Angeles Rams. He's familiar with Kevin O'Connell's system as he was there with Sean McVay. Obviously they run a very similar style of offense, but in 6 games I thought he was effective. Obviously the numbers aren't going to blow you away, but from my eye test, what I was watching last season, he was probably the best Vikings running back in comparison to like Alexander Madison and obviously my guy, Ty Chandler. I thought Akers passed the eye test better than both those guys. So on a cheaper deal, I would love to bring him back, but it would come down to, the money for him as, there are reports that he does want, a multi-year deal. I don't know if he's going to get that from Minnesota. We'll obviously have to wait and see. But let's talk about another former Minnesota Vikings running back, and that is Dalvin Cook. And the only reason I put him on here is because I had a couple people reach out to me on Twitter. What are your thoughts on bringing Dalvin Cook back? And, simple. I'm just going to say no to that. I was telling you guys on the channel, 2 off seasons ago that the Vikings should move off Dalvin Cook. We looked at all those deep analytics, the rushing yards over expected, and we saw the fall off of Dalvin Cook coming. I just don't think he, has the same juice as he once was. So I'm going to say absolutely no on Dalvin Cook, but maybe you guys disagree with me. Maybe you want Cook back in Minnesota. Would you sign him? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no down in the comment section. Pretty curious to actually see what you guys have to say about this one. All right, let's kick it to the defensive line here as another player who has yet to lose the battle to Father Time, and that is Calais Campbell, who did play with the Atlanta Falcons this past season. And coming in at 37 years old, Calais is still very, very effective. I mean, last year, played all 17 games, had 17 quarterbacks hits, 6.5 stats. Like, I made the comparison of Calais Campbell to like LeBron James and what he's doing in the NBA of just absolutely dominating Father Time. I don't know what's more impressive, LeBron playing damn near into his 40s already or Calais Campbell playing in the interior of the defensive line at age 37 in the NFL. And there's definitely a need there for the Minnesota Vikings. Right now we got it slated as Harrison Phillips, Jerry Tillery as the 2 starters at the defensive tackle. And Flores has raved about Jerry Tillery dating back to last week's OTA session. But I would much rather have a guy like Calais step in there, still be effective, big body, and I think he could really be productive, for the Minnesota Vikings. But another defensive tackle here, Linval Joseph, another reunion. We're going to talk about it. Big hungry. Does he want to return to Minnesota? Well, he still has a house in the Minnesota area right near the stadium. There was a ton of rumors about him coming to the Vikings a couple off seasons ago, but he was with the Bills last season, and he hasn't really been productive over the past couple of years. The stats aren't going to blow you away at all, and but I still think he could be a guy. Early rundowns, first, second down, you could just stick him in there. He can just eat up blockers, and I always make the comparison of offensive line, the running back is very similar to defensive line, 2 linebackers. I think it'll open up holes for Ivan Pace, Blake Cashman. And I think Linval, just as a rotational guy on a minimum deal, I would be absolutely thrilled if the Vikings, brought back Big Hungry. But another reunion. I'm just now realizing how many reunions we have on this list. Patrick Peterson, the cornerback. He did play with the Pittsburgh Steelers this past year. And the main reason I would want to bring Pat Pete back is just because of the mentorship I think he would bring to this young Vikings cornerback room. And, I think of a guy like a Adoree Jackson that he can mentor, being that super athletic, 6'4" corner who's really, really raw. And if you would bring in a guy like Pat Pete to just kind of sandpaper his game, give him some tips and tricks on how to really excel at being a cornerback in the NFL, Pat Pete's a great option. As you guys see a trend here, I want these veteran corners who could help just not only the on-the-field production, but also help these guys off the field as well. If you guys see the stats, 42 tackles, 2 INTs, and 11 PBUs for Pittsburgh last season. Now let's talk about one of my favorite players in the NFL, and that is Eli Apple, one of the best trash talkers in the National Football League. And, anytime I think about this guy, I just think of Cincinnati Bengals playoffs games where he is jawing at Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers, going back and forth throughout the entire game. And, is he the same player as he once was? No, probably not. But, coming from Ohio State, 6'1", 203 pounds, he'd just be another rotational piece for this Vikings cornerback group, and still was pretty effective. He did play for the Dolphins last season, but he did have 9 PBUs, 46 tackles, and an interception. Now another cornerback here in the division player is Jerry Jacobs, and if you guys know, Jerry Jacobs was most famously known from Vikings fans as the guy that went after Justin Jefferson's ankles when he was running it was a trick play. Jefferson was out to the right, and he was trying to throw the ball, and Jerry Jacobs kind of went down on his ankles. But he did actually have a visit with the Minnesota Vikings a couple weeks ago. Plays with a lot of swagger. He was a big piece for the Lions defense last year, but he had 55 tackles, 3 INTs, 8 PBUs, and this is not a needle mover on defense. This should just be another rotational guy that I think Minnesota could bring in. But I just gave you guys 10 names. I just want you guys to give me one here. Name a free agent you want the Minnesota Vikings to sign. Could be anybody. Could be a guy named on my list, but you guys just got to give me one name you want Minnesota to bring in. And as always, guys, give me a follow on Twitter. That's a handle right there, at Pat Sieps. If you guys give me a follow, I'll give you guys a follow right back. But thank you guys so much for watching today's show. We'll see you guys next time. Skol Vikes.